Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of A Game of Thrones podcast, where we talk about the latest episodes of the final season of HBO's Game of Thrones. My name's Adam Bankhurst, and you may know me from IGN, from The Gamer's Advocate, from Grow Like a Pro, and a bunch of other places. And, I've always wanted to do a Game of Thrones podcast, and I've talked about it for a million times, but it was finally time because hey, it's the last season, so I don't have much left. But it's been awesome to start it. And the first week we had so much fun. We did live reactions, and then Bill and I did a full recap of the episode, last week, and it's available on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and all these other places. So I just tonight, basically, it's just going to be instant reactions of episode 2, which they just revealed the title of as A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is pretty cool. And once we get into the reactions, you'll understand why. But I do want to say this is going to be full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode, make sure to run away very fast. But I want to just dive into it and just talk about what I thought about this episode. And I have to say, this is probably one of my favorite episodes in a long time for Game of Thrones. And it may be kind of weird because there wasn't any big action moments or crazy things happening or crazy deaths, but there were so many good character moments. There were so many good, little things that really showed how dire the situation everybody's in. And I just really liked the focus on the characters and how everyone was in Winterfell and understood what was coming. And, I had a little bit of an issue with the end of the episode, which we'll get to, because I thought it was a little too convenient how, Jon drops the bomb on Dany and everything. And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, there's the horn and the Night King and everybody's here. So that was a little too much like a TV show for me, if you will. But besides that, I just really, really enjoyed the episode. So the way this is going to work, we're going to just go through the episode very quickly. And this is my raw reaction. So I haven't really went back and looked at anything or did stuff. So enjoy this. Feel free to discuss in the chat. I'll answer questions, do all that kind of stuff. And then tomorrow, Bill and I will do a full recap. We'll have predictions and go scene by scene and talk about everything in much more detail and think of how we think this series is going to go in episode 3, where stuff's probably going to get crazy. So without further ado, let's jump in. So, it started with the brand new opening, and we got Winterfell and King's Landing, but we also got to see the last hearth, which was where Tormund and Beric was at the end of last episode, where there was the the path of the White Walkers, as it were. And we started with Jaime basically on trial. He was in Winterfell kind of answering for his crimes in a bit. And, Dany talked about this whole, basically said they talked about if they would ever catch who killed their father, what they would do to him, and all the things that we would do once we finally captured the Kingslayer and stuff. And it wasn't looking too good for Jaime. And even Sansa was saying, I know what you did to my father. You fought him in the streets. You did all that stuff. But Brienne stood up for him. She got up and she got up there and started talking and really, put her life on the line for Jaime after all they've been through together. And it was a touching scene. And, Sansa immediately changed her mind because obviously Brienne has saved her and has been there and is one of her most trusted, people. So it was cool to see, that happen. And we all know the history of Jaime Lannister and all that and the bad things he's done, but he also does have a sense of honor, and it really does feel like he's turned a new leaf, as it were, and doesn't forgive him for all this past stuff. But it's cool to see when people stand up for him and how much Sansa really appreciates Brienne, because Brienne's been, for not just for her, but for the Seven Kingdoms, she's been really something special. And you know what? I think she finally gets her due a little bit later in the episode. But there was also a really good scene where Bran just looked at him and said, "The things we do for love," which is obviously a callback to the first episode when Jaime just pushes Bran right out the window and kind of starts the whole journey of Game of Thrones. Really, that was one of the turning points with everything. Then we, as everyone kind of left, though, we started seeing Jon avoiding Dany, and I kind of had a feeling this was going to come, because Jon is very much a man of honor and didn't have the right time to talk to her yet, and was starting to say, "Ooh, I don't know, I can't really show you affection or do anything with all this stuff going on." And Dany was starting to realize something was going on, but we get a few more of those before the big confrontation later. We go to the next scene, and Arya and Gendry are there, and Gendry's working hard, building all that dragon glass, and Arya's checking on her weapon and saying what's going on. And Gendry's not really taking her too seriously until she starts throwing dragon glass at a pillar with perfect aim, and finally convinces him that, yeah, you know what, maybe she would probably be good if I focused on this weapon for a second. Then we got to another really cool scene, which was Bran and Jaime at the Godswood tree. And I really like this because Jaime was expecting Bran to be angry to do all this stuff, and Bran obviously is not really Bran anymore. And when he said sorry, it's like, yeah, you said it to Bran, but I'm not really Bran, and if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't have happened. So in a weird sense, everything, like I said, everything kind of stemmed from that one point, and Bran wouldn't have been there for what's going to happen without Jaime of pushing him out the tower. So it was kind of cool to see that, to not really have, even though Bran's not really Bran, it was cool to see that all that stuff happen. Then we got to see Tyrion. We got to see Jaime and Brienne kind of have their first little meeting. And there was another really touching scene that really shows that Jaime is really here for a good reason, and he's not really trying to do anything secretive or crazy. When he admits he's not really a good fighter anymore, he doesn't have both of his hands, and he really just wants to serve with Brienne. And yeah, it was good to see. And along this whole thing, Dany and Tyrion really there's starting to be a little rift there, because Tyrion trusted Cersei in a sense, and obviously Cersei has no intention of bringing an army up there to help them, and Dany is really just upset with her. But people are defending Tyrion and saying, yeah, people make mistakes, but he learns from them. Even Jorah came and talked about it, which I thought was really cool, because we know how much Jorah has loved Dany this whole time and has given up, and he basically lost out to Tyrion for that position, and having him say that, I think, really spoke a lot. But I think Dany's still not, forgiving Tyrion forever. And, later in the episode kind of sent him down to the crypts and say, we need your mind if that's what you really are. We don't need you fighting and stuff like that. So it was good to see. And there was another really good scene that I liked when Theon came back, and you could just see the look in Sansa's eyes, because, Theon or Reek or whoever he was at the time really saved her from Winterfell when Ramsay Bolton was there, and having that little reunion was very touching, and especially everything that Sansa's been through. If it wasn't for Theon kind of breaking the hold of Ramsay, Sansa probably wouldn't be here right now. It would be a very different story. So that was another good scene. And then we got another one of my favorite scenes where, Dolores Ed came back, the Night Watch guy who Jon's been with forever. And you thought it was going to be this huge reunion. And then Tormund just basically tackles Jon, which was really good, saying, "My little crow." And they told him about, all the Umbers getting destroyed by the Night King, and however, if you're not in Winterfell, you're basically screwed. And it was basically, they're saying, we really don't have much time. And what that means is they're going to be here before the sun comes up tomorrow. So they're kind of screwed. And that kind of hovers over this whole episode, which once again, I liked, is there's a lot at stake and people understand. And I think are kind of accepting that they're kind of fighting a losing battle, but we get some really cool moments because of that. And of course, one of Tormund's also first questions is the big woman still here? Because, he's always got an eye for Brienne. So that clearly hasn't changed. And then we got to see some other people. Then Jon started narrating, and we got into the strategery section where they were kind of discussing what's going to happen, who's going to be defending all the civilians are going to be down in the crypt. They're going to try to defend them and do all they can. And there's not much they can do. And once again, that's when Dany kind of said, "Hey, Tyrion, you're smart. You got to be in the crypt for me." So they kept going. Jon once again avoided Dany. And there was also a cool scene where Tyrion and Bronn started talking, and Tyrion kind of wants to hear the story of Bran, or not Bran, sorry, Bran wants to hear the story of Bran. And, he says it's a long story, but Tyrion basically says, we're trapped in a castle in the middle of winter with nowhere to go. I think we have some time for story time. And I was wondering if we were going to get a little flashback scene, or maybe that'll be part of the next episode. We might go back and forth, because if Bran, Bran's going to be kind of protected. Because, part of the plan, too, was Bran is going to lure out the Night King because he's been marked. And they want to kind of, obviously, if they destroy the Night King, they think everyone else will fall down. Because that's kind of, in last season and other episodes, if you kill the White Walker, or all the White Walkers that are kind of under their command get destroyed. So, you cut off the head of the dragon and maybe everything else will kind of fall. So hopefully I would love to see some kind of flashback or some kind of thing to get back. Cause I love the scene where you got to see young Ned with, Lyanna's dying words, saying that whole thing in The Secret with Jon and becoming Aegon Targaryen. So that was cool. And then, we got another cool scene with other people going through the, basically their last night on on Earth, possibly, before stuff gets crazy. And then we got the gathering of one of my favorite scenes in this whole thing, where we got Brienne and Podrick and Davos and Tormund and Tyrion and Jaime, and everyone was just kind of sitting around a fire, kind of starting to tell stories, to do all this stuff. And we got a beautiful scene of Tormund drinking milk, or giant's milk, out of a crazy horn, because when he was younger, he killed a giant when he was 10 years old, and then climbed up to the giant's wife and sucked her teat for forever. And that's how he got super strong. So that was pretty silly. But once again, I just love seeing all the characters together talking and, realizing the futility of their future, but still trying to enjoy time together as much as they can. We got to see Arya and the Hound once again, and it was kind of sweet. And Hound said once again, I fought for you, and you were one of the only people that I really respected, but while still jabbing at each other. And how you said Arya always used to never shut up, and now she just can't talk. So that was good. And then but Barrack comes in, and Arya leaves because she's like, I'm not spending my last 2 hours with you, or my last day with these two miserable people. But we get to the next scene, because we know who she really wants to spend time with is Gendry, because Gendry comes in with her crazy dragon glass spear. And, they start practicing, and she's shooting an arrow. It's once again reminiscent of the first episode in a sense. And then Arya starts asking some very pointed questions. Some very interesting questions about how many women Gendry slept with, and all this other stuff. And, Arya wants to know what sex feels like before everybody dies. So, there was a little bit of sexy time there. And it was, it's nice to see that they'll have some love before all this craziness. And it's a sad day for everybody at Winterfell, but at least people are, getting theirs, as it were. So that was pretty silly. Then we got back to, the greatest scene of the episode, and probably one of the greatest scenes in Game of Thrones, I could say, or something like that. And we go back to kind of the crew all coming together, sitting around the fire, and they talk about how it's still, Lady Brienne, but she is much more than just a lady. She is a protector of the realm. She's done so much for everybody, saved lives. She is the definition of a knight. And while they say, Cersei wouldn't knight her, there's no way they can do it. The way it works in Westeros is, if you're a knight, you may also knight someone else. So Jaime took it upon himself to knight Brienne of Tarth. And especially after all that she's done for him and their relationship, it was a beautiful moment. And Gwendolyn Christie, I think, did just like Sam Tarley's actor John Bradley did last week. She did such a great job of acting that scene, and you could see how much that meant her. I mean, that is her life. Her life is serving others, serving the realm, saving people, and she was finally kind of, ratified, or she was vindicated, or whatever you want to call it. And that was a beautiful moment. But I'm not going to lie, because I definitely thought for a second that Jaime was just going to slice her head off. I know it probably wasn't going to happen just with all of the stuff we've seen behind the scenes, but can you imagine if, the Night King was on his way, there was all this craziness, and then all of a sudden Jaime just kills Brienne right in the middle of nowhere. And I knew it probably wasn't going to happen, but since Game of Thrones has been known to, throw stuff at us that make us go, what the hell? I thought that might have been one of the moments, but I'm glad it didn't, for the record. But it definitely crossed my mind for a second. And then after that, there was we got to see Jorah and Lyanna Mormont. We're kind of talking about it. We're talking about, we have to protect Bear Island, or, you shouldn't fight. You're too small, blah, blah, blah. But she's, no one's stopping little, that little Lyanna Mormont. She's going out to fight with her men, and she's going to honor Bear Island and everything. And it was a nice scene. And then Sam comes up with Heartsbane, which is the sword he, stole from his home. And he gave it to Jorah because, he said he couldn't even hold it upright, but it was just showing how much, Sam trusts and respects Jorah, and how much he knows that would mean to him. And Jorah takes it, and it was another nice little scene between two of the good characters, the good people in this world. We go back to the group of our friends sitting around the fire, and Podrick starts singing. They ask a song and everyone says no. Tormund grunts, which I thought was great. But then Podrick starts singing a song, and all it reminded me of was Return of the King, Lord of the Rings, when Pippin starts singing the song, which was a very, I think, iconic scene in that movie, like all shall fade. And we cut between different characters. We cut between Theon and Sansa, and Missandei and Grey Worm, and Arya and Gendry, and all these people. And it was just a very beautiful scene. And I just love those kind of music tones and overtones and things. And I thought it really kind of helped set the mood of what was coming, and just showing all these people, some in love, some saying goodbye, some reconnecting, and all really just feeling the weight of what was coming. Because that's what this whole episode was. It was the calm before the storm. It was, we know what's coming. There's no escape. Like, we are literally stuck in Winterfell, and the Night King is coming. Winter is coming. It is here. And this is what's going to happen. So how are we going to spend our final hours? Are we going to spend them with the ones we love? Are we going to honor people? Like, what are we going to do? So after the song kind of ended, we cut to Dany finally confronting Jon down in the crypt, and he's standing in front of Lyanna Stark's statue. And oh my god, I totally forgot to say the Ghost made an appearance earlier. Oh my god, he didn't really do much, and he was just kind of standing there, but it was cool to see Ghost. I just got to give him a shout out. But we saw Dany and Jon in the crypt, and Jon told the truth, told the whole story about how Lyanna was not raped by Rhaegar. They were lovers. She, with her dying wish, she begged Ned to say, hey, we have to protect him, or, he's never going to survive. And he told the truth. And you could tell how much this was bothering Jon. And, some may say it may not have been the best time to reveal this news, but I think it was really weighing on him. I think it was really weighing on his conscience and his soul. And I think it was really the only option for him. And, Dany was like, oh man, so you basically have the best claim to the throne now. And that's kind of that could be a problem. But this was my biggest problem with the episode. We had such a little TV moment happen. The horn blared out through Winterfell saying the Night King was here. The winter has come, the whites are here. And it kind of cut their conversation short, basically saying, tune in next week to see how Dany's going to react, which I don't know. For an episode that I think did character moments so great and made them feel kind of real and made everybody just, really act their characters, I thought this was just a little too unrealistic, and really pulled me out of it, because I'm like, that was just way too perfect timing, like too perfect. So that was probably my biggest issue with this episode. But I get it. They have to build anticipation and stuff, and it's part of the game. But it was something that just kind of bothered me, and just wanted to point that out here. And then we got basically the final scene. They're all coming up to the wall at Winterfell and looking out, and we just get this massive scene of all these White Walkers just lining up the horizon, and they have arrived with the zombie horses and their entire army ready to attack Winterfell. And the battle's here, guys. It's next week. I think it's the one that's an hour and 22 minutes, and it's going to be crazy. And, we went 2 weeks without anybody dying. Everyone's kind of here they're getting their reunions. They're getting, making love, doing this, sitting around a fire, having fun. I think playtime's over. I think next week we're going to lose some people, and it's going to hurt, because these first 2 episodes, it was nice seeing everybody back and getting these character moments and stuff. But I think next week we're going to get this battle that apparently took 57 days to film, and it's gonna be brutal. I don't think there's any way around the fact that it's going to be brutal, and that's kind of where the episode ends. And I think Bill and I will go into much more detail into who we think is going to survive, what's going to happen, what's going to go through that. But I just really appreciate this, and I think it was kind of maybe a little bit of a bold move by Benioff and Weiss and HBO and the Game of Thrones team, because this was very similar to last week. It was a slower paced episode. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened and a lot of good character moments, but at the end of the day, there were no dragons, there was no fighting. We got to see Ghost for a second, and there really was not much. But I think it was perfect. I think it was such a good episode and a good setup for what's going to come, and I don't think it felt too slow. So I commend them for sticking true to what they want to tell and the story they want to tell. And besides, like I said, a few gripes I had with the episode with Danny and John having their conversation cut too short, I thought it was just such a good episode. And man, it's going to make next week a lot harder, I think. So that's pretty much it. That's a night of the Seven Kingdoms, and probably one of my favorite episodes in a long time. And I was glued to the TV the whole time, waiting to see what character moment I was going to see next, what person is going to have their final moment with who, how are they choosing to spend their final hours potentially alive. And it was just, you felt the weight throughout the episode, and I really appreciated it. And I thought they did a really good job with it. So that's my instant reaction with it. I thought, once again, great episode, great character moments, great setup. They're going to tee us up so they can knock us down next week. But it was really good. And, next week or tomorrow, like I said, Bill and I will be going through our full recap, predictions, everything. And if you want to be a part of the show, you can send all your questions and thoughts and comments to podcast@gamerofthrones.com. Once again, that is podcast@gamerofthrones.com. And we'd love to have you be part of the show and kind of help lead the conversation and do all that stuff. And I really just appreciate you coming along for the ride. And if you like this, be sure to check out some of our other shows. We do a gaming and entertainment focused podcast called Gamers Advocate that we've been doing for a very long time, and a business show called Grow Like a Pro. And you can obviously follow me on IGN and read all my articles on there. And, stay tuned for, man, we have only 4 more instant reactions before Game of Thrones is over. Oh, it's so sad. But yeah, you can find Gamer of Thrones on all podcast services, on iTunes, on Google Play, on Spotify. And we love interacting with the community and talking and just discussing this show that's taken over the world for the past few years. And there's something special about it coming to an end, and coming to an end this way. So I look forward to coming back tomorrow and talking more in depth with it. And I just really want to say thank you for coming along for the ride and joining me tonight. And, until next time, I hope you have a great day and or night, and we will see you tomorrow.